30 seconds.
I want to ask the Minister of Defence what his intentions are to address the manning level issues in the event that the Pay Commission do not make credible and functional recommendations to address the recruitment and retention issues of the Defence Forces. We know from PD4 conference this week how a large number of soldiers, sailors and the Air Corps are buying themselves out of the Defence Forces because they're unhappy with the pay and conditions. Many of them are working, when you look at their hours, below the national minimum wage, and your department is still breaching the working time directive. So with the plea that the Chief of Staff is obviously going to make to the Public Pay Commission, he obviously doesn't have the same hope that you do in giving the time and space to the Pay Commission. And what are you going to do if they don't address and progress solutions to the serious recruitment and retention issues?
Minister to respond to 2 minutes.
As I have previously outlined, the Public Service Pay Commission was established to provide objective advice to Government in relation to public service remuneration policy. The Department of Defence has provided detailed data to enable them to undertake an evidence-based analysis of recruitment and retention issues. The Commission's work is ongoing and I have no intention of speculating on possible outcomes of that work. However, I can assure the Deputy that the Government remains committed to reaching the authorised strength of 9,500 personnel of the PDF. There is ongoing recruitment to achieve that target, and a range of alternative recruitment approaches are being developed. A working group is examining the scope for greater use of direct entry recruitment for certain specialist positions, and steps are being progressed to enable former members of the Defence Force who have sought after skills to re-enter the PDF. I will continue to work closely with the Chief of Staff in developing these approaches. The Permanent Defence Forces continues to offer excellent career opportunities for serving personnel for new entrants, ensuring that the terms and conditions of serving members of the Defence Forces are fair and balanced. Is also a key consideration. There are a range of actions outlined in the White Paper Defence 2015 which are aimed at advancing this goal. A commissioning from the ranks programme has been initiated and is underway presently. The criteria for extending service beyond 12 years have been revised, and an examination of retirement ages for enlisted personnel has been prioritised. A gap analysis of skill sets in the PDF has been brought forward. In addition, the military authorities have introduced further initiatives to enhance work-life balance, and this has to be welcomed. Last year I initiated a review of the CNA scheme for the Permanent Defence Forces, and I recently received a report from the Independent Chair, Mr Gerald Barry, and I'd like to thank him for his work. I am currently reviewing the recommendations contained therein, and I look forward to engaging fully with all parties in progressing reforms of the existing scheme. The current challenges being faced by the Defence Forces are not unique and are being experienced by other military organisations internationally. I will continue to work closely with the Secretary-General and the Chief of Staff to develop appropriate management responses.
Deputy Chambers.
Minister, I just want to ask you, what recommendations did you actually make to the Pay Commission? Because that's not certain at the moment. And in response to me in May, you said, "I'm not sure if he read the recent headline in the national newspapers." That's a quote from you. Well, Minister, here are the few headlines you might have read this week. Crew shortage prevents naval service vessel setting sail. Taoiseach cannot confirm naval vessels did not set sail due to staff shortages. Defence Forces staff buying themselves out of service. PD4 have said hundreds of Defence Forces personnel have paid to get out of service over pay rates. Irish Defence Forces troops left stranded in Syria after flights delayed. Members of the Defence Forces being paid less than the minimum wage unless they work additional hours. This is the reality and the facts, Minister, around the full-blown recruitment and retention issue that we have. And my fear is that you keep kicking to touch about the Pay Commission and that we're not going to get the measurable recommendations. You're leading an area of the public service that has a unique difference to other areas that you keep referencing. Recruitment is up, but the numbers keep going down. When are you going to plug the gap to see a levelling of the numbers so that you meet your white paper response? And these are the headlines now that you need to defend and reference, instead of trying to look at the positive spin that you outlined in May.
Minister,
well, first of all, let me state the minimum payment for Defence Force members is 27,000. That has increased with public service stability payment. I am giving the Public Service Pay Commission the time and space to carry out their work. We have given them a very comprehensive submission, joint submission from both the Department of Defence and military management. They worked extremely hard on this submission. It is data-based, evidence-based, and that is exactly what the Pay Commission look for. So I'm not going to predetermine the outcome of the Pay Commission, but I'm going to allow them, Deputy, to do their work. This is a fully independent body, away from the political. These are people that will look at this in a very independent way, and I think that is the proper way to go about this, that they can look at the challenges that we have. We have giving them an evidence-based data. It's not up for me to recommend. It is no, it's not. This is a pay commission. No, you actually want to go back and look at the terms of reference of the pay commission. Okay, you go back and look at the terms of the pay commission. And the other thing is, you spoke there about people buying themselves out. There's reasons why people have to buy themselves out, and you should go and check those out.
Ask members.
Again, if you've made no recommendations, what are you doing as Minister for Defence? What are you actually doing in your office? And I want to know as well, we've an element of contagion now. We've obviously issues in the naval service that we've seen in recent days. And I want to know if you've received military advice about how the air ambulance service might be reduced or reassessed because of the current difficulties in that section of the Defence Forces. So clearly we have an element of contagion growing across the different sectors of the Defence Forces that aren't being addressed. You as Minister have now admitted that you've made no recommendations to the Pay Commission. You're sitting back, you're waiting to see what they come up with, and you'll defend whatever your department officials hand you in a script. What we need is political control. You need to put the officialdom aside and start dealing with the issues and driving morale up in the Defence Forces, because we've got an absolute recruitment and retention crisis that doesn't match any other sector of the public service. The Defence Forces that you lead are the last in line when it came to public paying conditions, and you need to recognise that and make positive recommendations and have a stronghold in your input to the Pay Commission. And it's very worrying that you've made no recommendations. It's hard to know what the Department of Defence or the Minister for Defence's role is in all this if we've made no recommendations.
Final response from the Minister.
Deputy, you should actually go back and look at the agreement of the conference and supply, because actually your party signed up to the Pay Commission and they agreed with the terms of reference. They agreed with it. So I'd actually ask you to go back and look at the terms of reference of that. Your party signed up to that under the conference and supply agreement. So I'd ask you to go back and look at that. It's not up to me to make recommendations. It's up to the Pay Commission to do that. We are asked by the Pay Commission to give evidence-based data. Evidence-based data. And we did that with a very comprehensive submission. And we did that. And I worked on that with the department, with military management, with a joint submission. And I'm happy and content that we have given that sort of data that was required by the Pay Commission. And I'm not hiding behind anybody. I will not shirk away from my responsibilities. I have stated clearly that we have challenges, and that is the challenges that I have outlined across the Defence Force sector have been outlined in the Pay Commission, in the submission, in the joint submission that we have submitted. And I'm content that we have given absolutely evidence-based data and every sort of requirement that was required from